Ms. Cindy, have a roll call.
Mr. Westmoreland,
Present.
Mr. Duncan.
Here.
Ms. Dominguez,
Present.
Ms. Abrams.
Here.
First item of business, Section A, discuss the accounts payable check register for September 16, 2021 to October 15, 2021 in the amount of $19,684,579.28. Good afternoon, Mr. Schnadelbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is just for y'all's information. I'll entertain any questions. Just to the point that included in this check register are a lot of Hurricane Ida expenditures to the tune of our general contractor of $2.3 million, an electrical contractor $328,000, and Ponds Food for purchasing about $300,000. So that's why the costs are high this month.
Any questions from committee members? Not, we'll move on to Section B, review the year-to-date actual budget comparison report for the month of September 2021. Mr. Schnadelbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No actions needed here. Our expenditures are actually running a little less than we anticipated right now. Our salaries are under, a little over $1 million under. Our sales tax numbers are very strong, over 20% more than we budgeted. And something very exciting is our Education Facility Improvement District's sales tax revenue is up about $400,000, and our expenditures has a current net surplus of about $500,000. So pretty excited. We're strong, but I'm gonna have to warn y'all that probably need every penny of this money or this extra money to cover some of the Hurricane Ida construction costs. What won't be covered by insurance and won't be covered by FEMA.
So everyone keep buying Tangible Parish.
Yes.
Some question.
Go ahead, Brent.
So, Mr. Schnadelbach, on the, well, I know we have one major expenditure that we had not anticipated that's coming that has to do with our health care benefits. That's going to be a big chunk of,
About 700,000, 650 to 700,000,
for half of the year.
half the year, yes, sir.
So then next year,
It'll be 1.3,
about twice as much, right?
correct.
So that's something that we had not anticipated, and that's solely as a result of the officer group benefits raising the rate as far as that's concerned.
That's
right?
correct. They had issued the rates originally on October 1, and on October 6, they came back and increased our rates 19%. School boards only.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Jenko.
But what would the explanation be as far as the salaries themselves being less than what we had originally budgeted? Where's,
I would have to get with Mr. Jenko and sit down and look at the staffing levels. Right now, I can't exactly tell you exactly where we're under, but we are trending under.
So
I
just-
know a lot of some of the substitutes have to do with the ESS program, and some of that may be just timing, and that it takes a month to process that invoice, and maybe the month lag on some of that, but that's not the bulk of it. That's a minor, less than a couple $100,000.
okay, so you'd just be guessing, but
I
is
don't
it
know right
positions
now.
that are not filled generally that we're still trying to get filled, or are,
I don't know.
Don't
I'll
know.
need to sit down, and Mr. Jenko and I would have to look at his staffing levels compared to where we're trending actual expenditures.
let me ask you this, when we budget for, say, certified teacher positions, do we actually budget what the average cost is for a certified teacher versus an uncertified teacher?
No, we actually, when we developed the budget, we base it on the prior year ending
Okay.
expenditures. And we'll add an increase, thinking we'll cover additional costs, things of that nature. So if we're trending, currently have, say, 150 uncertified teachers, we'll probably budget 150 uncertified teachers.
Okay. All right.
All right, any other questions?
I have one,
Bush, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Glenn, thank you. Mr. John Watt, in this, I just would ask you to do me a favor and look at this. We know bus drivers are doing multiple routes. There's a lot of them doing that. And
I'm sorry, Mr. Bush, can you speak up?
I know bus drivers are doing multiple routes.
Yes.
And I know they get paid extra for doing those routes, but they're not getting paid the official salary if they had another bus driver. Is that correct?
Each one's different, Mr. Bush. There's a lot going on there that I'm still trying to grasp around how they're working now that I'm back over transportation. I couldn't answer that right
Okay,
now without
so
having a better understanding.
I'm requesting that we take a look at that, and if I'm bus driver A, and I'm doing my route plus I have to do another full route. And if we had another driver, that driver would get full salary for whoever that is.
Yeah, but Mr. Bush, I don't think they're doing another full route. I think they're taking those routes and splitting them up between 2 and 3 drivers.
And that might be true, but I'd like for you to look into it because
Yes, sir. Sure will.
there's stories out there, some drivers are doing 3 routes. And I know they get extra compensation for that. I'm not saying they do it for free, but they're not getting the full salary that a driver would get, but they're doing the same work, correct?
Well, no, not exactly, because we still have routes that aren't being covered. So we have some parents whose kids aren't being transported to school that have to
Oh,
transport
okay.
themselves. So it's
So
a
that
lot
secondary
going on.
route might not be full of students because some of the parents are taking them anyway. Is that what you're trying to say?
That could be part of it. But
Okay.
some of the routes are just not being covered because we're short drivers, and parents are being told
Yeah.
that route won't run
Well,
today.
I'm really thinking about the drivers that drive their full route, then
Yes.
turn around and go back and do a full another route, and they getting paid some for it, but they're not getting the full salary the other driver would be if we had enough drivers.
That's correct.
And so what are we doing with all the money? I guess are we saving money in the transportation if we don't have drivers? And what are we doing with that money? Or do we
I don't
even
believe, I don't believe our reduction in salaries is related to transportation, I'll be honest with you, but I will look into it, Mr. Bush, and I'll have some answers for
It
you.
seems like we got a bunch of them
Yes,
missing. Anyway,
We
thank you
certainly-
very much for just looking into it. 'Cause-
yes, sir.
And let me just say, no one's complained to me. Not one driver has called and said, I'm doing second route, I'm only getting $50.
Right, but
So-
we want to treat them fair. We want
Yeah,
our employees to be
absolutely.
treated fair.
Yeah, because if the money's budgeted for that driver and he's not there, but someone else is doing it, why not just pay him that money? It's already in the budget.
Yes,
That's
sir.
just my thought.
I will get back with you.
Well, welcome back to transportation, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Mr. Bush.
Back in my education days, Mr. Steinerbachen had quite a few conversations about transportation. Let me say, you were always good at what you did, and we always got answers, and
Well, thank you.
I just let you know that that's a fact. Now, you would save a nickel to drive 10 miles out of the way, but that's all right.
I think I still do that today.
And I want to say
Brett,
this,
is this in addition to all of the other responsibilities that you have?
Yes, sir.
before?
Now that Dr. Hurst has stepped down, Ms. Stilley's ultimate wisdom has given me transportation. So me and Mr. Muse are going to make sure it gets better. I promise
So
you
you're,
that.
so you're no longer bored, right?
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Ms. Rose?
Yeah, back to the Office of Group Benefits. Okay, so on the beginning of the month, they give us a quote. And then they come back a week later and give us another quote. So I guess they can do whatever they want to do because they are running it. However, after talking with you about it in the discussion, that there's a committee and they voted to change only school systems. Is there anything that we as school board members across the state can do? Maybe reach out to this committee? Why did you just delegate ours out separately? Or, I mean, what can we do? Anything?
You know, we have an individual in the audience who may be able to answer that question
That's
better
what I
than
was
me.
hoping, yeah.
If we want to get him up, maybe he'll answer for us.
Mr. Danny Garrett, I know you are even working on that for us, so do we have a,
I've got multiple hats, and I'll put that one on. We reached out to the governor's office, but the governor's office usually doesn't like to be heavy-handed with officer group benefits. They did exactly what they said. They prepared everybody, actually, a couple of years ago, they were going to have 2 successive 5% increases, and everybody prepared for it. What they did is they went and they decided to create a subset of just school boards, because frankly, y'all did something that was good for your employees and was within the rules that they gave y'all, and that is, they set up one of the options as this high deductible plan, and y'all had employees that wanted to do that, and y'all said, look, we'll put up the money so that you'll be able to cover that high deductible, and that plus the premium made sense for y'all, made sense for the employee, and ostensibly made sense for them, because hopefully they wouldn't have projected a plan and giving you a premium that wasn't actuarially sound. They just got upset that too many of y'all were using, that too many employees were choosing that. And I actually was making a presentation to the Government Finance Officer Association, the school board breakout, and I was right towards the end of my presentation, and everybody looked at their phone and their tablet, because I think everybody got the email at the same time, and we actually ended up talking about it for the next 15 to 20 minutes. Reached out to the governor's office, there's nothing we can really do. One of the difficulties is, under state law, once you're in officer group benefits, you can't just opt out. The other school boards that are not in officer group benefits, if they've just got Aetna and they decide to go with United Healthcare, they just make the decision. Y'all don't have the ability to do that now. Whether or not it's time for school boards, from a legislative standpoint, to have the ability to just consider officer group benefits one of the options and be able to make that decision, that might be something that potentially we do, but there's really nothing to do immediately. They have all the power in this circumstance, particularly with this short notice. And it's going to be very difficult for school boards that whose members have chosen what was made available to them, only to find out at the last minute that it was going to cost you that much more money.
I think that, I appreciate you doing that. As a state board, I'm hoping that maybe we can get that on our table and do something about that, because it just doesn't seem fair that they would single school systems out and charge us a much higher rate than any other entity in the state, which is just totally not fair, because all school systems are suffering for money. We're all needing money.
And they didn't do it to everybody who opted to the high premium plan. They just did it for school systems.
It's just
Because a
that-
number of school systems had done similar to what y'all had done, and they had essentially run their math and said, you know what, from our math, our members get the plan that they would want. It costs us a little less money. And so the high deductible works for them if we gave them enough to cover that piece of the deductible. And frankly, it doesn't seem like it should make any sense on what the premium the state charges if they get the exact same money that they were going to get the exact same. If y'all didn't have your policy, they had told you what the premium was. They were going to get the premium in exchange for it. Problem is they thought fewer people would be able to use the high deductible plan, and so they were kind of hoping people wouldn't use it. Now, they could have always sent y'all a notice and said, hey, come in this coming year, that plan is no longer available. In which case, we would have told your employees, look back through, choose a different plan. But the manner in which it was done was pretty, and I agree, it's unfair.
It's not fair to our employees for a cost that their insurance has now increased so much, and then for the system to absorb the rest of that cost.
Right. And with no lead time.
And with no recourse.
Right.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Mr. Garrett. Appreciate it. That's it.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Before you got this big promotion to transportation, whether you realized it or not, you were still doing transportation because we called you. And thank you.
Moving on to section C, consider approval to contract with Hydric, a wetlands consultant, to assist the administration to obtain final usage. Section 404, approval for impacts to wetlands related to the development of the Champ Cooper Expansion Phase 2 project. Mr.
Move to
Snobley.
adopt the administration's recommendation.
Motion
Second.
made by Mr. Duncan, second by Ms. Dominguez. Do we have a discussion? No discussion, a call for vote.
Voting is open. Excuse me. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Moving to section D, consider approval of the administration's recommendation to select DCMC Partner LLC as the vendor providing consulting services for disaster recovery and FEMA public assistance.
Move to adopt the administration's recommendation.
Motion by Mr. Duncan,
Second.
second by Ms. Abrams. We have discussion.
These are the folks that did it last time and are already doing it now.
Correct?
Call for vote.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Section E, consider approval of the administration's recommendation to select Frank A. Anzalone, General Contractor, Inc., as the vendor providing project management services for disaster recovery and FEMA public assistance. Mr. Schnattelbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The administration issued an RFP for vendor management to manage permanent construction work on all our Hurricane Ida projects. We received 4 proposals. 3 of the 4 proposals were very strong. The It came down to a point differential, came down just to pricing. The administration is recommending Frank A. Anzalone, general contractor. Not only were they the low price, but they bring an expert construction knowledge and experience that we felt the other vendors didn't have. The other vendors had architectural and engineering and even FEMA consultants on staff, but we have architects and we have engineers, and we've just approved the FEMA consultant just before this. But what we really don't have is we don't have that expert general contractor knowledge that Anzalone General Contractors brings. In addition, Frank Anzalone Jr. is fully knowledgeable of the total extent of our damages related to Hurricane Ida, and he can begin work on permanent stuff, helping us get those projects off the ground immediately.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation.
Motion by Mr. Mingus,
Second.
second by Mr. Duncan. Any discussion?
Mr. Schneiderbach, on this one, can you give us a little bit about exactly what we are contracting with him to do? I don't see in the documents that we have on board docs the actual contract that we are
Yes.
approving.
We don't have a contract in place, but he will do based on hourly costs. They will manage as the owner and oversee the construction permanent work. They'll assist with the architects in defining the scope, the materials that will be used, and then they'll assist as the owner. And when the work between the architects and engineers and the assigned contractor for the job to make sure they're doing the work that they need to do. Currently, right now, we do not have a supervisor of construction, and when we do get one, the individual will be up to their elbows in getting phase one work up to speed. So putting the Hurricane Ida work on that person would be unjust at this time.
Okay, so he's limited to the FEMA recovery type projects as
Yes.
part of what we're retaining him for. And then we would, through the administration, would approve like the list of projects that we want to
Correct.
get done.
That he will manage. He won't
Right,
do,
and
he'll just manage.
Right, but we will approve, here's the things we need to get fixed.
Correct?
And then he essentially takes over as kind of owning, making sure that those projects
Correct.
get done in the most efficient way possible.
And his costs are FEMA reimbursable at the 90% level.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Call for a vote.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Nothing further to be brought before the Finance Committee. We will adjourn this meeting.